Today's guest is David Fastuca, CEO of Growth Forum. David helps B2B founders achieve profitable growth through repeatable sales systems. Over the course of his entrepreneurial years, David has been able to turn pressure into productivity, which has paved the way for the creation of his step-by-step blueprints. However, despite a sales' very close relationship with marketing, today's episode is not about sales. We're focusing all of our attention today in our discussion on David's marketing initiatives over the years. A large portion of his success has come from the implementation of a heavy content-led marketing strategy, which has assisted in not just his sales processes, but also helped his team sell much more efficiently and easier. Today, we'll learn about the ins and outs of his strategy, the real-world impacts, and how it can help your business scale. We'll also learn about the key insights from David's upcoming book launch, unveiling on March 26th. Let's welcome David to the pod. I'm really looking forward to our chat today. You've got an extensive background in sales, but what I'm most interested in learning today, and I'm sure our listeners are most interested in learning today, is how you utilize your marketing, and you've done some amazing things with that over the years, and how you've used that to your advantage to then help your sales team not only sell more effectively, but just make it easier for them as well.
Mate, I'm ready to rock and roll, dive into that. I love the whole content marketing play and how it become, a bit of a superpower for businesses.
Yeah. So how did it become a superpower for your businesses over the years?
So if I take a step back and look at my previous company, locomote.com, so it's still active today. It's in the business travel industry. There's quite a lot of, big players in there with stupid, crazy budgets, especially on the marketing budgets. Like we're talking multi-million-dollar per month spend on media, and being, seasoned in that space, we just didn't have that sort of budget to compete with them. So we had to play a different game. And the game that I chose to play was a content play. And what that looked like was I had a look at all of our ideal customer profiles, the buyer personas within those, and what they actually care about, and then started to create a bit of a content journey based on all the areas that the product helps solve, but also industry-specific problems that can help them in their role. So this came down from video series to blog posts to then PDF downloads. Tried to create this arsenal set of content that myself and the sales team can use depending on who they're speaking to, where they are in the buying journey, and what's really relevant to them. And then within that as well, we had a bit of an automated journey. We're using HubSpot in that. So I had a bunch of sequences, again, always with insight and value for the buyer. So try to place Locomote and the individual selling to the organization as the thought leader for them so they can earn the trust with the buyer.
That's really interesting. I liked how you touched on the customer journey there, because a lot of times, I suppose one of the common mistakes that a lot of businesses tend to make is that they just produce the content and they're not thinking about where that's going to be aligned along that customer journey. So when you were going with this content heavy approach, what were the differences between the content that you were putting out for someone that would be at the start of that customer journey versus along the way and then finally just before they're about to purchase as well?
Great question. So if they're not even problem aware at the moment, then there'll be more sort of top of the funnel. So more about the industry, about, why we exist, why us, and about how, for those individuals in their role, how do others solve the problems that they may encounter? And if we look at the flip side of that, if someone was at the, let's call it the 3% ready to buy stage, so they're problem aware, they're doing a bit of shopping around, then we were sharing more case studies, the results the product has, the benefits and features, and also some case studies, and also doing some introductions to like sort of our golden circle of those who love to share and talk about us. So it's a very different content approach. Like the bottom was more aggressive, based on hear about us and the results. So building that confidence, going, if you're in that decision-making stage, why should I trust Locomote, that's been around for say 5-10 years versus someone that's been around for decades and I see everywhere when I go into the airport and things like that. So there was that trust gap that we had to try and fill quite quickly.
Yeah. I'm interested when you were looking at that 3%, they're just about ready to buy, and you're doing these introductions to customers that have had their success already. How did those in that 3%, how do they find that introduction, those conversations that were happening? Did they become a bit hesitant with it, or were they very open to experiencing all the information and learning more?
It was more like an open entry. So, like, say we were selling to you, it'd be like, Didier, don't just take our word for it. If you want, I'm happy to introduce you to someone like you in your position, type of business,
Mm.
um, that had the same sort of hesitations, and you can just talk to them offline, right? So you can ask them any question you want. I'm not there, and you can drill down. And we will always tell like the people, be honest, yeah, like tell them because we weren't. No journey is ever 100% beautiful and clean. There'll
No.
be areas where we can always improve on. And we just say, don't if you talk like how the whole journey was A plus and amazing, people aren't going to believe you. I said, so just, speak the truth. The onboarding was a bit bumpy, but then they were there, the founders were there, they helped us get fixed any issues, and then within the same day was fixed, and we're on to go. Like I'd rather you say that story than the onboarding was amazing, there were no issues, because no one ever believes that. And there was no hiccups when we rolled it out. It was all good. Like say the stuff, but then say how we reacted and how we're there to support them. That builds trust. So for those that took the call, it worked really well, and we found that our close rate was quite high. Um, and then those who didn't want to have a chat, completely fine. Like they either, not comfortable with that sort of thing or just didn't want to. So it's good to have in your back pocket where if you've got that close-knit group who, you're always going to refer to, as long as you give them the heads up that, it's coming inbound, it's a great thing to have up your sleeve.
And that transparency is so vital, isn't it? To be upfront, even if it's not 100% clean and perfect, just be upfront and honest and say, look, this is what happens, but we still were able to get a successful outcome with this customer, and we can still get the same for you.
It earns a lot of trust, even with the customer that you're working with, because it just shows one, you care, two, you're willing to go into the trenches and help. I'll never forget one customer, we had a bit of issues in Locomote just onboarding because there was just some things that weren't just some blind spots that we weren't aware, and the customer wasn't aware that they need to tell us. So we're like, it was quite uh, hectic the first sort of 48 hours. So it was all hands on deck to the point where, we went into the business to help, and then to help smooth the education piece. It's one thing just to fix the issue. It's another thing to instill the confidence. So like I remember I was working within the business to onboard and just went around to the users just to rest assured that we're there for them. And there was a face behind the brand. It was quite a big customer. It was a big deal for us. So we wanted to just showcase that we're there for them, and it's not just another piece of software, that where it's faceless, and all you get is an email from the founder and that's it.
Mm.
So those little things, again, not scalable, but means the world. And then good word spreads, adoption kicks on, and these people, if they move jobs, move careers, and an issue within, you know, business travel occurred, then they'll go, oh, we had this great experience with Locomote. Have you heard of them? So the goodwill and the good word starts to spread as well.
So let's take it back a few steps and let's look at that top of funnel and middle funnel content that you're producing. What were the types of content and what platforms were you predominantly looking at as being the drivers for that?
Back then within Locomote, and my belief has changed, right? Where I had everything on our website and just tried to drive as many people to our site as possible. If I flip that now, I am more trying to leverage other people's audiences. And these audience could be LinkedIn. So I'm going where my audience are. I'm leveraging YouTube for where people are searching for a lot of content and getting a lot of discovery from. So the same content, whether it be video, written, or any sort of gated content, I'm now just trying to give the content and present that to where our audience sits, rather than hoping and trying to drive them out of platform and come to my website. Because if they,
Yeah.
yeah, I can start, especially on LinkedIn, I can start a conversation with someone quite easily. On YouTube, if they like one video, they might cherry pick to the next one. Obviously, there's the risk of them jumping to somewhere else, but they're probably more inclined to engage within a YouTube account versus go to your website. So the content play was still relatively the same. It's more the distribution that I changed. It's harder now than ever to drive people to your site. So why challenge that? Why fight that? Go where the flow is. And especially when, as an SME type business, you've got limited time, limited resource. So the easier bang for buck is to go where your customer is.
Yeah, I love that. Leverage where they are, and then instead of driving them to the website, stay where they are and build it from there. I think that's a really good approach, and it's cool to see that you've transitioned your beliefs over the past decade to this point in time. I think it's especially LinkedIn. I love it. I'm on there all the time. I'm posting on there daily. It's just once you're on there, you just dive into it. I love it, and you're 100% correct. People will be open to a conversation on there in the comments or through the DMs, whatever it may be. I think that's incredibly important. And then you've got the flip side of things on LinkedIn, which I'd be interested to see your perspective on, please, David, is that you've got the silent majority. So the people that aren't necessarily commenting or liking the post, but they're consuming it. And that's the bulk of users on LinkedIn. Probably 85% plus of users on LinkedIn are just doing that. So that's an incredible opportunity there. If you just keep showing up on day after day after day, and you provide that value, when the time is right and they're in that 3% and they're ready to purchase, they're going to come to you as opposed to someone else. What's your perspective on that?
Well, I agree. We can often get caught up with the vanity metrics of, geez, this person just got 400 comments, 1,000 likes. I've got 4 comments and 4 likes. I'm bombing. When really it's understand that, like you just said, there's the silent majority that are viewing your content, just not interacting with your content. And that could be one of 2 reasons. One, that's not in their persona to interact. 2, they probably know that if they like or comment, they're probably going to get pitched afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Which happens a lot. So they're just viewing the content. I've got countless amount of times where I've had someone reach out to us either direct or on our site. And one of the questions I always ask is, how did you find us? And it'll be a post that you put on LinkedIn. I'd be like, oh, great. Then I'll be going back on my LinkedIn post. I'm like, this person never commented or ever
Yeah.
liked at all. So it's just like, you know what? Sometimes, you need to move away from those vanity metrics, and it can feel like you're getting no traction from there. But it's a bit like a muscle, right? Like if you go to gym and you want to work on muscle, you want to tone up, lose fat, whatever it is, you need to show up and you need to put in the reps. And often at times you could feel like you've hit a wall and you're plateauing and you're not seeing results. The worst thing you could do then is stop. You might need to change a little bit or tweak your messaging or, change your routine in order to get a bit more activity happening to reignite the muscles within your body. The same thing applies for in business. So it doesn't matter if you're doing email outs, if you're doing posting on social, it's to keep at it so long as you're learning why isn't something working, is something not resonating well, and then make iterations from there. You can always get better if you keep going. You can't get better if you stop and expect things to change.
Wholeheartedly agree. Wholeheartedly agree, David. And that consistency is so critical and important. And then likewise, as you touched on there, understanding what's working, what's not working, and changing where required. This morning I recorded a LinkedIn live event, and it goes out onto the podcast as well. And I was speaking about how I had 2 of my videos go viral on LinkedIn back in probably October, November. And like yourself, I couldn't care less about the vanity metrics of the likes and the impressions and what forth. But when those 2 the 2 videos went well, I looked at the impressions and I was like, look, it's nice that I've got them. I'm very grateful that I've got them. But why have these 2 videos popped off as opposed to other posts? And so I went through all the posts I had done in the previous 6 months thereabouts, and I was trying to identify, like, what's the comparisons between the variables that are making this successful versus the others. And then moving forward for the next 2 months, I did a little bit of an experimentation, changing different variables here and there to see if I can replicate success or find out what it was that it was doing it. And the biggest learning that I had out of all of that was that there's only two things that can change the success of a post. When you look back on the metrics, is it the message and the content and the content matter itself either needs to be changed, or you need to change the way in which it's presented so it's easily receivable and communicated to your audience. And it's one of those two things always, but you don't understand that unless you go back and you actually watch through or you read through and you look and analyze the results of your content previously.
Exactly. Like you could put all this effort into a post or into a YouTube video. The content is amazing, but if you don't package it right with the right title, with an intriguing thumbnail, then no one's going to click through to consume the content. So just as much effort into the title, into the thumbnail, into the overall packaging of what you're presenting needs to take place. Like even it's just the same as like in the physical world, in the digital world.
Mm.
You want to create that wow factor. I just got a delivery today of this protein supplement and the packaging. I was like, wow. And my wife was like, "What? Did you get some new aftershave?" I'm like, "No, because that's how good it looked. It was sleek packaging." And my impression of it was like, oh, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And luckily the product's great as well. But it was like, that was my first impression, like opening the box. It was like an Apple experience. If anyone's
Mm.
ever got an Apple product, the unboxing, even when you take off the plastic, every little every little step there, they've thought about just to create this great experience. So it's like when you're doing your content, if you're going to go for the effort and the expense and the time to put our content out there where there's, a stupid amount of content out there, at least put the effort into packaging right. So if I'm coming across it, I can understand whether you're writing to me or you're writing to another persona. So one, I can consume it or I can skip on and be on my day.
Yeah.
Right. So it's putting in that effort because now more than ever, especially with all the AI tools that are out there, it's easier than ever to create bland, boring content and even pretty good content, if I'm honest. So it's like, why are you going to create content? Why do you earn the right for me to read your content?
Mhm.
Right. Like that's a big thing that we're talking about within Growth Forum is that you need to earn the right for your prospect to spend any of their hard-earned time to engage with you on a call, to read your content, to read your email, to respond to a call. So why give them the reason to earn the right?
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. You got to be so aware of people's time. And if you're going to put something out there, it has to be worth their time to read it or watch it or engage with it. And if the content matter is not valuable, do not put it out there because it's only a reflection of you and it's not a good reflection. Yeah. So you just touched on the Apple unboxing process, and it's a lovely experience for anyone that has experienced it. That's all part of not just their branding, part of their sales process, part of their marketing. And those three areas, they're all very similarly aligned. But over the years, especially the previous decades, they were such separate areas. I think today more than ever, we're seeing those three areas just become so closely aligned. So, from your perspective and what you've seen in both Growth Forum and in your businesses previously, what is your approach to all three: sales, marketing, and branding? Do you see them being very separate or do you see them being interwoven together?
I think the future, and not just the future, now, they need to be seen as one unit. My thoughts around marketing is that marketing should enable sales to become easier. Right. So look, let's break that down. What does that mean? So it would be helpful if the prospect that I'm talking to knew who the heck we are, right? Rather than going in cold. Again, marketing function. And you can say that the salespeople have a role. Like we, advocate that salespeople are part of the marketing team. They need to share the brand, write about the brand, so then it becomes easier for them when they're engaging with their prospects that they know who they are, what they represent, and what their company does. So they need to become one. And I think it's clear that, whether you're a CMO or CEO, if you don't have a CMO, and you're setting the goals and the targets, I believe that it should be a revenue target that they go to. So then there's not this delineation of I've got, marketing, you just got to get in 1,000 leads. Sales, you need to close 100 leads. Well, marketing can tick the box. I can easily get 1,000 leads through. Doesn't mean they're good quality.
Mm.
And so it makes it sales hard. And then that's where that friction comes in. Where if you can say marketing sales, the goal is as a revenue unit, you need to produce, say, 10 mil in revenue for this quarter. So then marketing can say, okay, cool. Of the marketing budget I have, what is going to go down to this channel, that channel? What's going to enable the sales team to close more? And there should be that cycle where the sales team is saying, of the last 20 leads that I spoke to, it would be helpful if they had XYZ piece of content delivered to them before I got to speak to them. So help me with my closing journey. Cool. If you keep having this repeated cycle of feedback from the sales team into marketing, and then you can get tighter and closer together about what the customer needs and wants, then you'll start to see some good harmony and some good action coming into play. And it just works well for marketing because then they can go request more budget. Because if the sales team are closing more deals and you have this nice flywheel effect of things working, then you've got a good premise and a good base to request more funding to add more fuel to the fire to continue this motion. So I think anyone that's doing it separately is probably having these issues, and they need to look at aligning those two groups, but more importantly, aligning their goals as
Yeah.
well. And if you've got a revenue goal, then everyone's going for that same North Star and they work together a lot closer.
So the businesses that you've successfully worked with, these are the businesses I would presume that have really collectively brought those three areas together and made them seamless in their transition.
Yeah, look, if I look at Locomo, for example, I was the CMO and co-founder in that business, and my cousin was the CEO, and he'd always challenge me. He's like, all right, cool. Like, I know you want to do this brand play, but how's that going to affect sales? So we would butt heads from time to time in a good way.
Mm.
And it would be like, we need to ensure, like, we don't have the runway and the budget to be doing these other things that these bigger brands are doing. So they need to be really aligned to enabling sales. So that's where all the focus went into. Yes, we created the content, which on the outside looking in is a brand play, but that was the area where we decided to have our edge, where we could enable the team to provide an overload of content to the prospects, where we then build that trust point. So that's where we played. So I think it's mission critical that you're aligned to that. And it obviously depends on the type of budget that you have. If you just raised, quite a lot of money, then you've got some areas where you can play and take a few risks. But if you're bootstrapped and self-funded, your risk profile would be quite low because your runway would be quite short. So you need to be really diligent and specific with what you do and have a strong hypothesis of why are you doing that and what result do you expect to get, and then reflect on that and then make iterations and changes and then go again.
One of the common themes that's coming through all of our discussions so far is that you want to make it as easy as possible for the salespeople to do their job, which is to close the prospect. To do that, you need to make sure, or in an ideal situation, you want to make sure that the prospect is as familiar with your brand as possible, correct? So the way I'm coming at this from a video perspective, but I'm sure it would relate to all different types of content as well, written, audio, etc., etc. I see sales and marketing being very closely aligned in the sense of if you have a sales cycle, you've got minor touch points and you've got major touch points. So if we're looking at it from a B2B perspective, minor touch points, you comment on a LinkedIn, on a prospect's LinkedIn post, you see them down the street, you say hello, whatever it may be. The major touch points are the phone calls or the boardroom meetings or whatever it may be that are really going to bring that sale close to completion. And then you look at that from a content perspective, I see that as being the short form pieces of content are those minor touch points to just keep you front of mind, keep it ticking over, keep the relationship hot. And then you've got the major touch points, which are probably the longer form videos, YouTube videos, demonstrations, etc., etc. Do you see that kind of working in that process of bringing that sale closer to completion, keeping things front of mind, making that job for a salesperson easier? Do you see that framework and that analogy kind of being part of that conversation?
Percent, right? Like it's like if someone wants to work with us at Growth Forum, for example, we try and push as much of content to them before we jump on the call. So we're pushing them to our YouTube channel, to our podcast, so they can, hear and see myself and my co-founder Luigi, so they can go, oh, yep, I like what these guys talk about. I like their approach to sales and marketing. I'm in. Or on the flip side, they can qualify themselves out and go, nah, I was looking for X, Y, Z. This is not the right thing for me. And both of those situations are okay, because then they can, cancel out their meeting and we both save each other some time.
Mm.
But then those, we've got a straight correlation between those who have consumed content from our side and the win rate from those versus those who haven't consumed content, and the close or loss rate from that. It's light and day. And that's brought us down to, okay, how can we amplify this? So that's why we decided to, go down that crazy world of writing a book, for example, where, we distill all of our knowledge into a condensed book where we can give to people prior to joining a call or along the journey to, again, build that trust where they can read one chapter, two chapters and go, wow, these guys know what they're talking about. Or on the flip side, nah, this doesn't resonate with me. And again, we build that trust factor. So then when we're engaging and talking with them, we have a reference point as well. So when we, pick up the phone and call you and go, hey, Didier, what did you think of the book? Did you get any insights out of it? Does it make sense for us to jump on a call to go through, what the program with us looks like? And you're sort of bought into our world that way. So I think like brand is what becomes your moat within your business and your differentiator, and really focusing down on who you serve. Now, you can't serve everybody, right? Like the markets are just, there's enough clientele out there for everyone to win in their own space. So I think it's imperative to really focus on who do you serve amazingly well and really own that niche and create, the right content that speaks to them, and it's better to have 1,000 raving fans than 10,000 people who think you're meh, okay, because then those people will be more loyal, they'll spend more with you, they'll make your business a lot more profitable and a lot more enjoyable as well.
The enjoyable factor is so important. You don't want to be working with clients that you're half in it with. You want them to be big fans. You want to call them up and just have a regular conversation and not be stressed out all the time. And I think that's a really, really key point.
Easiest thing there is, does it give you energy? When you're picking up the phone and talking to client X or prospect Y, is it giving you energy or is it drawing energy? If it's drawing energy, then it's probably not the right fit, for you personally and what you're selling or doing. You want to be getting energy, like things like this. Like after, we're done recording here, I'm buzzing, full of energy. I got to go for a walk to come down because I love it. I
Yeah.
can talk sales and marketing all day. I love helping people, with their roadblocks and problems in this space by sharing experiences that we've learned through and how we overcome those and what they can do and apply now. Like that drives me, and then seeing their results and seeing, the impact that has on their business, their family, themselves, their goals. Like if what you're doing is not providing that sort of value and that drive to you, and people can feel it, whether you're genuine or disingenuous, it's such an important thing. And life's so short these days. Why would you want to do something that you don't really care about versus finding that thing that, yes, you can earn, from and do some good.
Yeah. What a line that is. I love that. Absolutely love it. Thank you, David. Hey, you touched on your book just before, and I want to give this a little bit of a plug because it's coming out this week as the episode airs, and it's called the B2B Sales Playbook. So, I guess the content is in its name, but what's this all about?
So I'm just putting up here. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's nice. It's a big, bold, black book with big white writing. What we aim for it to be is that we want it to be on the desk or in the hand of every founder and salesperson as around the globe as possible. Now, it's a choose your own adventure book, right? So it's not something that, while you can read from front to back, it's something where if you're experiencing a particular issue within your journey right now, you can find that chapter, go straight to that area. There's no fluff. It's all backed by factual data, stories that we've experienced, and we give everything away from our templates, our resources. If you sign up to get the resources, there's also chapter by chapter coaching. So you'll get an email once a day per chapter with a summary of what you'll learn and take away and the resources per chapter. So, the subline, it's a tactical guide on how to create a predictable flow of qualified deals, right? And that's the goal for it. In the bonus chapter in the back there, there's a story of my co-founder Luigi on how he almost bundled a deal that was originally meant to be a 5-figure deal. It turned out to be an 8-figure deal. And it's a really, one-to-one conversation with him and the person that he sold to at the time, on that journey and what it looked like and what that process and step by step, what he did in winning that deal, I think it was close to 10 years ago, is
Wow.
still relevant today. And it's what we teach within Growth Forum. And now we've created this framework called the Vision Selling Framework, which we go into in a lot more detail, and how that applies to B2B, but also to the B2C world as well. So it's a bit of a passion project. It's been what will be almost 2 years in the making once it's live out in the market, which is this week, as this airs. So yeah, we'll love for anyone that, if that strikes a chord. There's a lot of marketing in there, so it's not purely just the sales playbook. I'm often chiming in on the marketing front and what that looks like and how that works. So yeah, grab it. Let me know what you think. If you give it a review, I'll throw you the audio version as well as a thank you for leaving a review.
Fantastic. I like how you've come at it from that choose your own adventure kind of approach, because there is nothing worse than reading a book and you know all of it's not relevant until a certain little bit of it. And so being able to just go in and find the bit that you want to know about and then come back to that later on and reread it, I think that's really, really, really important. So I'm glad you're coming at it from that perspective.
We're big readers ourselves, and we're friends with quite a lot of the books we've read. Jeb Blount and all these amazing authors that have written crazy good sales books out there. And we took it the approach of, well, we don't want to create something better than what's out there. We want to create something that's different, that's not
Mm.
out there. And so this approach here, you might be amazing at driving leads for your business, but you really want to, increase your conversion rate. Cool. Go to that part of the book, right? And we break down how you can bring the customer on the journey, even get your customer to build the proposal for themselves, and with the IKEA effect, and how to increase your close rate from 30% and lift that up to 70%. Right? It could be just those 20 pages in the book that give you crazy value and you don't read anything else. Fine. Then you might pass the book to someone else, and it might be a chapter that they read completely different to you. They're struggling with their sales mindset. I've got this real scarcity mindset. My pipeline is thin. Well, the book talks about how to break out of that, how you can engage into an abundance mindset and what it takes to get there, and the exact steps and frameworks. So what, might have started a bit fluffy there about mindset, it's your mindset's key to a lot of things in life, nothing more so than in sales and marketing. And it breaks down the framework on how to, quickly get yourself out of that rut and get you back on track again.
That sounds incredible. Absolutely incredible. I think I'll have to go pick up a copy of it when it comes out. What would you say is the biggest takeaway for readers from the book? If you had to pick one, it sounds like there's going to be lots of little gold nuggets in there, but what would you say is the biggest one? The eureka.
I think the eureka moment in there is the gold is in the follow-up. So we talk about building out your outbound sales cadence, right? So what it looks like from how many touches does a typical buyer engage with before they, book the meeting with you or before they buy. And every time we ask that question to someone, they get it wrong. They always think, 5 touches, 10 touches, 12 touches. It was a study by Gartner, and this was in 2023, that was over 18 touches. It's probably more now,
Wow.
right? Before
Wow.
from the average deal close from start to close, right? To get a booked meeting, sorry, not close.
And this is for B2B predominantly?
This is for B2B predominantly. But if you
Yeah.
look at B2C, if you're looking at, let's just say you want to buy a bag, right? You want to buy a backpack. You're not just going to the first thing that you see, right? You're going from one brand to another brand to another brand. You might research 6 or 7 brands, then compare prices, then
Mm.
go to the brands that stock all these brands and look at, is it cheaper there, looking at the features. So the buyer is doing a lot of research, right? So there's a lot more happening without your control. So I guess the biggest takeaway is about being resilient and not giving up after the first 2, 3, 4 attempts,
Mm.
right? Because the buyers were all inundated with notifications, emails, Slack messages, WhatsApp, you name it, that they need to be, you need to reach out more times than if you probably feel comfortable doing so in order to break through. And then you might feel like you're annoying. Guarantee you, they probably haven't even recognized your name until the 15th time. And then you might even get an apology saying, "Oh, sorry, I've just been busy. Thanks for being persistent." When you think you're being a pain,
Yeah,
they're thanking you. That's exactly how I won an $8 million deal with Locomo. It was at my 20 something touch. And the person I was selling to actually apologized and thanked me for following up so much with her. Um, so yeah, the gold is in the follow up is probably one of the biggest takeaways.
there you go. Listeners and viewers, I highly recommend getting yourself a copy. The B2B Sales Playbook coming out March 25th. So it'll be the week this episode airs. It'll be out in public. So do go get yourself a copy. Get in touch with David and yeah, have a read of it because that takeaway alone, amongst every other golden nugget in there, is going to be so critical to improving business success going forward. David, thank you. And as we finish up, David, I've got two questions for you. Going to go back to back here at they overlap a little bit. First and foremost, what is the biggest lesson that you've learnt over your career as a marketer? And then finally, what one tip would you give to someone who's completely fresh to marketing to help them improve by 1% today?
Okay. So look, what I guess is that a marketer's, and you could take this in any role, is that your learning journey is never finished, right? So it's to always have a thirst for learning, and to always keep your finger on the pulse as to what's happening in the marketplace. Because when you become, let's call it, a little bit ignorant, where you think you know everything, that's when you start to slip. And look, a piece of advice sort of flows directly from that is if you're new to marketing, find a couple of mentors out there. And this is not people you have to reach out to and say, "Hey, can you be my mentor?" Just follow them. If they have a podcast, listen to their podcast. If they've got a newsletter, sign up for it. Just consume, get 3 or 4 people who, you resonate with in any walk of life and just indulge your time into what they speak about, what they share, and then try and learn and apply those things because they can become your indirect mentors. And there's a lot of amazing people out there in all different industries and all different roles. And you can easily find them, sign up to their content, and just learn and apply. That's your quickest road to success is to learn from others, but also don't just consume the content, actually apply in
Yeah,
your role. If you're just consuming content, you're basically just watching a Netflix show, you know, so you want to make sure that you're actually applying what you're learning. So you're getting the data points yourself. And that so you're getting those hard knocks, making those decisions, and actually applying those things into your career. That would be my 2 biggest takeaways.
thank you, David. That's phenomenal. So the biggest lesson that you've learned is to never stop learning. I think that's one that we can all take advantage of and take a leaf from. And then go and, if you're fresh to marketing, go and find people that you want to be mentored by, consume their content as much as you can, and then more importantly, go and apply that in your everyday life, which is probably the most important thing that we can all do. David, thank you so much. It's been phenomenal to have a chat this afternoon with you, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to having a read of your book over the coming weeks. Where can everyone find you online and to keep in touch with you?
I'm super active on LinkedIn, so just look me up, David Fastuca, on LinkedIn. I'll accept your request. Mention the show. Like I mentioned, if you get the book and leave a review, I'll give you the audio version as well as a thank you. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me.
Fantastic. Thanks, David, and we'll speak very, very soon.
Thanks, Didier. Been a pleasure.